Breaking news tonight that might mean the world to the men and women who rushed the World Trade Center, watched it collapse all around them, kept right on working in a toxic cloud of dust and rubble. A lot of those early responders, mainly firefighters, have started falling ill, some with cancer. Right now, they're not eligible for benefits under a recent federal law because the measure does not recognize a link between cancer and the 9/11 dust. Now, earlier tonight, the medical journal Lancet released a new study just a few hours ago suggesting that firefighters are at a greater risk of cancer. The firefighters who responded to 9/11. The lead author of the study is the New York Fire Department's chief medical officer. CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta joins us now with details. So, Sanjay, the study suggests that the dust produced by the collapse of the Twin Towers is making the first responders sick, right?
That's right, and I think what is different here is that the idea that it would cause some sort of illness, primarily respiratory problems, I think that's been pretty well established. What's been at odds and a bit controversial, frankly, for some time is the possible relationship between the dust and cancer. There have been some studies that have shown no link, some small studies that have shown a very small link. This one is a much more significant study. It's a 10-year study now, Anderson, looking back over the last 10 years. They followed these firefighters all along this time. And what they basically concluded was that there was an association, a 19% increased risk of developing cancer for fire workers who were first responders who worked on the pile at 9/11. And if they included all cancers, including cancers that developed soon after 9/11, the association was even higher, a 32% increased risk. The lead author, as you just mentioned, Dr. David Prezant, called this pretty significant to me. I interviewed him about this specifically. Listen to what he had to say.
As we start seeing cancers, we want to answer their question, is cancer increased? And I will have to tell you that my initial bias was that for the first 10 or 15 years we would not see an increase. Right? That's another reason why I think our findings are so strong, because I actually thought we would find the opposite.
So you were surprised?
Very much so. Whether we can say that cancer is increased in other responders or area residents, we have no idea. This is a study about firefighters. Their exposure is so unique. All right? 85% of the exposed were present in the first 48 hours of the collapse when the exposure was massive. That is a very unique exposure.
The firefighters watching, they have the lingering question, why did I get this cancer and was it related to the dust? And you would say what?
For most instances, it was World Trade Center related.
Pretty remarkable to hear that, Anderson. I mean, again, what he's saying is something that a lot of people haven't been able to definitively say. Two quick caveats. First of all, as he said, this study was of fire workers specifically, so he's not making generalizations about other people in Lower Manhattan or even other responders. And even though it is 10 years since 9/11, this would still be considered an early study as far as cancer goes. As we've talked about before, Anderson, you and I, it can take 15, 20, 30 years even sometimes for cancers to develop.
And what's frustrating, obviously, for a lot of these first responders, a lot of the firefighters, is that they were just told by the federal government in this new health bill that there's not a link because there's no proof of a link, and therefore they won't get covered. I know you've been studying the contents of the dust from 9/11 for some time now. Is it toxic? How does it actually hurt people who inhaled it?
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, it's a wholly unique situation. The amalgamation of all these various chemicals that came together, or sort of blown together, benzene, asbestos, all these various things, was a situation that most toxicologists never seen before. And then a lot of these chemicals sort of, bound to the dust. So that mist of dust that you saw over the Lower Manhattan area wasn't just dust. It was this dust contaminated with all these various chemicals. What we know is that when you breathe in dust like this, it can cause immediate health problems. People refer to it as the World Trade Center cough. But then ultimately, as it got further, deeper into the bronchioles, it was almost like sandpaper, causing an inflammation that now Dr. Prezant and others believe may have been the genesis of these cancers, this increased rate of cancer that they're seeing. So respiratory problems, yes, that made sense to everybody. The cancers now, they're starting to develop some ideas as to the mechanism, looking at that dust.
And these are folks who rushed down there and worked there for weeks and weeks and months, regardless of their own concerns at the time and about not having proper equipment or anything. They were there every single day and around the clock. Based on the results of this new study, will these people be able to get coverage?
This, Anderson, I can tell you, I think this is going to be one of the more controversial things with regard to health, and certainly with regard to health and the pile that you're looking at there. I mean, it's already been a big source of controversy. What I will say is that we reached out to NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety Hazard, who oversees this. They say they're going to take this study into account. They haven't changed their recommendations yet since July, which shows no compensation for those with cancer. But at their next review meeting, which is next year, the study is going to be one of the studies they look at.
Next year, I think for a lot of firefighters hearing that, it's going to feel like
a long time away.
Yeah, it's a lifetime away. Sanjay.